Hey, what's up, everybody? I wanted to make this video to go over the movie Barry that we just saw to help you answer the film study questions and some of the discussion questions I'm going to be posting today. So, Barry it came out in 2016. It's a Netflix indie film directed by Vikram Gandhi. Not very well known, didn't come out in the theaters. It depicts Barack Obama's early time at Columbia University. You can see that in this picture up here at the top right. That is a picture from his time. And it shows a lot of the racial division still occurring in America after the civil rights movement. To what extent it's a success, to what extent its limits are. It's based on Obama's memoirs, Dreams from My Father, a story of race and inheritance, which came out in 1955. This was more than 10 years before he was elected president. He wrote this just after he became president of the Harvard Law Review, which was it's like a very prestigious law journal at Harvard University. So his memoirs here, the reason I'm bringing that up is that he bases them, he wrote his memoirs or tried to, like Ralph Ellison did in Invisible Man. We're going to get to this term, Invisible Man, later. Invisible Man is kind of a formative book in Black literature written by Ralph Ellison. If you took AP English, you may have read it. I had to read this book in college. It's on several top 100 literature lists for being very influential with the way it's written. We're going to get into that. It's a story about social and intellectual problems that Black Americans face, how they can never really kind of fit in because they're always being treated like an object rather than human beings with unique identities. There's always identities that are imposed onto them. And also this theme of experiencing social invisibility in life. The fact that no matter where you are, you're always invisible. Not like literally invisible, but no one can see your identity and respect it for what it is. Your identity is not visible to many people. Again, you're objectified, treated like an object, like a prize. The first scene I want to break down quickly is when Barry first gets to the campus of Columbia University late at night. He's locked out of his apartment and he has nowhere to go for the moment. He's smoking a cigarette on campus. The campus security guard asks him for ID and he has to leave. This, I think, is the first scene where you notice that he's going to be treated differently for his skin color. The second scene I want to talk about. Again, these are all notes I took. The way I'm doing this video is the way that you can kind of break down a movie and take notes. A classmate asks Barry during a discussion of Republic and majority in a political science class, why does everything always have to be about slavery? Now, spoiler alert, later on in the movie, Barry, in a moment of emotion, he tells him, he meets the classmate, Barry, at night. They're drinking beer, and he says, do you know why everything always has to be about slavery? And Barry says, because you're an asshole. And it's not like particularly meaningful, but I think that it reveals the kind of angst about. I don't know. To me, I felt like Barry could have responded in a much harsher way, and he didn't. He's always trying to play in between the sides, and he has a hard time really taking a definitive stance on issues. That's his girlfriend in the bottom right, Charlotte. Scene number 3, Salim. He tells Barry during a discussion, the trick is to sound just white enough. I think this is interesting because to me, Salim is one of the smartest and most interesting characters that kind of gets downplayed in the movie. I think for on purpose. This kind of really, embodies the way that Obama is, and kind of one of the reasons why he can never fit in is that his voice is just white enough, but it's also not white. It's not a white voice entirely, but I think a lot of people would say that it does sound kind of white. And we can get in a whole bunch of reasons. Why do you think he does that? That's a good discussion question. But Salim recognizes right away. Salim is one of the people in the movie who kind of tells the truth. or real talk all the time. Because Salim he lives life on the edge. He has no reason to hide anything. This leads us to our first discussion question. Can some people leave who they are at the door? Or is it impossible to hide every part of our identity? This is a question that is asked during the movie. I wrote this one down because I thought it was interesting. Hide who you are at the door. I think no matter where you go, right? We call this code switching sometimes. The way you might talk differently to your parents, to your friends, to your teacher. Is it impossible to leave everything about you at the door and to hide everything? Or is there always going to be some part of you that you may or may not want people to know, but it's there, right? Is this a possibility to always hide it? Or is there always going to be something there about you that you can't hide? Scene number 4. Barry and his girlfriend Charlotte are watching a speech, I believe, Ronald Reagan, the president at the time. Barry says, "Politics is bullshit. The president is always an actor." I thought this was kind of fascinating because I think this totally applies to Trump as an actor. But it makes me think, if Barry believes this, why does he become a president later on? It was kind of like, an interesting thought. Discussion question number 2. Is Obama's election proof that the civil rights movement succeeded? This kind of came to mind during some scenes in the movie. Thinking back to what we learned about with the Montgomery bus boycott, is the fact that a black elite, he is an elite, right? He doesn't fit in like Obama. There's the fact that a black elite can get into the highest halls of power in our country. Does that prove that the civil rights movement succeeded? Personally, I would argue no. I think that in a lot of ways, this actually showed that some of the successes of the civil rights movement, or some of the problems with it, became more apparent, right? All these racists came out of the closet, calling him a Muslim, a terrorist, a communist, a socialist, all sorts of crazy things. I think this kind of dismantled the illusion that the civil rights movement was a success. I mean, it did succeed in some ways, but in a lot of ways, there's a lot that has to be done, especially economically, right? This was a key theme or plot of the movie, right? Barry, he's living in several different worlds all at the same time, trying to find the place where he fits in. I kind of broke it down to 3 worlds: college, an educated elite, his girlfriend, or like white liberals, white people who aren't openly racist, but there's something uncomfortable there. That reminds me of the movie Get Out, right? Number 2, that girlfriend part totally reminds me of Get Out. Great movie. 3, his street friends, people he plays basketball with. His friend, who he ends up finding out is a lawyer, makes a lot of money, but he goes to parties in the projects. And that whole part in the projects where he gets punched by a guy who thinks he's hitting on his girlfriend. I mean, he kind of is. But I think that kind of brute violence out of nowhere makes him realize that, number 3, the street per se is not for him. Invisible Man, his nickname, right? I think this is kind of the theme, is that Obama has no sense of belonging. And the whole movie, he's trying to see, where do I belong? For us, we might argue he doesn't belong anywhere at the end of the movie. Scene 5. Barry's neighbor's friend pulls a gun on him over a comment about a pack of cigarettes. So Barry and Charlotte are walking back from dinner, and their friends who, his neighbors, not really friends, constantly ask him for cigarettes. And there's always a kind of threat that's implied, like, hey, you have to do this. And Barry, he's with his girlfriend. He's a little bit more brave, he's kind of cocky right now. So he gives them one of his last cigarettes and says, one of these days, I'm going to make you buy me a whole pack. And this guy in the middle gets up, obviously drunk, smashes a bottle, threatens him and, says, "You're not even from here. I grew up here my whole life. You're a chump." Pulls a gun out on him, and the friend back there kind of restrains him. But again, it makes him realize he doesn't belong here. Scene 6, when Barry leaves Charlotte. I thought what was interesting about this is that when he left her, like he breaks up with her, he doesn't even say a word to her. He just communicates through his eyes, saying, "I can't do this." And I think she's very hurt by that. She's kind of blind to this the whole movie. Doesn't realize kind of this kind of white liberal attitude. They're not openly racist. They do kind of treat him like an object. Remember, he has that conversation with those activists, and they tell him, they're two black activists. I think this kind of pushes him to break up with her. They're the only two people of color at the wedding besides him. So they say, "You take the baton as fast as you can. Or sorry, as far as you can. You take the baton as far as you can, and then you hand it off. That's life." So I think Barry, that's kind of like we end the movie with him realizing it's not where I fit in, it's what I do. So discussion question number 3. Does not fitting in motivate an individual to work hard and become great? And our last discussion question. Why does it seem like Salim is the only person who Barry fits in with in this film? So the Indian roommate, who's, again, he's kind of a coke addict, alcoholic. He yells at people when their dogs are, pooping on a sidewalk. At one point, he has a prostitute in the house. Why does this really strange person seem like the only person who Barry fits in with? That's about it. Hit me up if you have any questions. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.